Hi, this is Sweet Life and I'm Natasha, back at it with the recipe for a grilled New York strip. Because it's hot, even sometimes with AC, I try to make things earlier in the day, especially if I'm going to turn on the oven. That way you're kind of getting that heat out of the way before it gets hot outside. I'm not a big fan of the heat. I actually prefer the fall and winter, but something that I do look forward to during the summer is grilling. As someone that meal preps, I try to think of ways to make things easier for myself from a perspective of ensuring that I'm eating healthy, but that I'm also using my time efficiently. So let's get into grilling this New York strip steak.
They're about a half teaspoon, though some of them are a little bit more, a little bit less. So I have here a teaspoon of brown sugar, half a teaspoon of powdered ginger, powdered garlic, black pepper, cinnamon, cumin, and allspice. And then because these are a little bit more spicy, these are chilies or peppers, I have a bit less. This is a quarter teaspoon of chili powder, and then I have maybe about an eighth of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper so that you get a little bit of heat, but it's not super, super hot. You blend it together and make a little rub, and then I'll rub this onto the steaks to give it flavor. The brown sugar will help it to get some color. And this is now your dry rub. If you were making quite a few steaks, like right now we're just doing 2 steaks, but if you were doing for like a party or something like that, you could take the seasonings and put it into a spice mill or into like one of those like little personal blenders and blend it up, make quite a bit of spice, or even you could make more than you'd need for your steaks and then just put it in a container and save it. You'd have like a ready-made seasoning mix for whenever you're doing meat. So here we have 2 New York strip steaks. I've washed them down with some vinegar, let them soak for a little bit, poured off the vinegar, rinsed it with some water, and now I'm going to put the seasoning mix on it. And then just rub it in and let it sit for a little bit. You don't want too much moisture, but just a little bit, like left over from just the moisture of the meat itself and the vinegar. It's going to help the seasoning mix to stick to the meat. And so I'm not a big steak fan, but when I do buy steaks, I try to get like the prime steaks, and then I look for pieces of meat with little bits of fat throughout the meat, rather than the meat just being very red with no fat in it and like a really thick fat cap. So when you cook it, that's going to render out and it's going to make the meat nice and tender, juicy, keep it from being too dry, but at the same time it's not going to be super fatty.
So after applying the dry rub, I let it sit for a bit just to kind of marinate. It's not like in a wet marinade, right, where it's sitting in liquid. Just letting it kind of sit in the spices, those flavorings, just allowing them to soak in. And then from there, putting the steaks onto a nice hot grill. Starting out, I have 2 different temperature zones on the grill. I have one side where the burners are turned on, so that's going to be your direct heat. The temperature there is going to be higher. And then on the other side of the grill, you can either completely turn off the burners or turn them down very low, and that's going to be your indirect side of the grill. It's going to be not quite so hot as the other side. Now, when you pull down the cover, the air will circulate and whatnot, but that one side, it's not right over the fire. With your hot side of the grill, you can use that to get some nice grill marks on the outside of the steaks, get a nice crust going. And when you feel it gets to a good enough point, I'll then move it over to the indirect side of the grill. So that way I can cook it to my desired level of doneness. For some people, just those grill marks on the outside, a few minutes is going to be enough for them. So like if you like more of like a rare steak or something like that. But given that I was making this steak for myself and my mom, and she's not trying to eat like any rare steak, and I'm more of like a medium well kind of person, I needed to get it closer to being well done for her. And so in that case, I moved it over to the indirect side. I removed my steak when it was at my level of doneness and then let it go a few more minutes to be well done for her. Now, granted, as with anything else that I make, you're the one making it, you're the one eating it, you're the one buying the ingredients, so you do it to your level of doneness. Feel free to go ahead and adjust the seasonings, put a little bit more of this, take out a little bit of that. When I was making this, I was also grilling some other stuff, and I used like some wood chips to flavor the other things. Those were like seasoned differently. Right? And in addition to that, I'd made like a barbecue sauce. But in this case, I made a spice rub for the ribs. And I decided that was all I was going to put on the steaks. Now, if you'd like to, afterwards, If you want, you can add barbecue sauce. You can use steak sauce, maybe put together like a little compound butter, like a little herb butter or something like that. But because of the spices and whatnot that I put on the steak, I wanted to still be able to taste that and to taste the meat. So with that, I just left it with the dry rub and cooked it, and that was it. I didn't really add anything else to it. And we're good to go. And one of the things that I found with grilling is that during the summer, it's very useful. I can make a number of proteins. I can make several sides pretty quickly. And with grilling, and to be clear, grilling, not barbecuing, not smoking, which can take a lot longer, with meal prepping, I can quickly put together something on the grill, make quite a bit of stuff, while avoiding heating up the house. As well as I can have different proteins on the grill going at like different temperatures. So it might be barbecue chicken, I might have some shrimp, I might have steak or something like that. I can certainly make these things inside. I do certainly make these things inside, but with the grill, I can have them going at different temperatures. Where with the oven, you set the oven temperature, it's just the one temperature. You might have one type of protein or something that you want to cook at a slightly lower temperature, something else that might need a little bit more heat. And so with that, you end up maybe not being able to make everything at the same time. Whereas with the grill, you can have two different types of meat, two different cuts of meat going at different temperatures at the same time. I can cook indirect on one side of the grill, direct on the other. So it's like, while there are pros and cons to both methods of cooking, I feel like with grilling during the summer, it's a really great option. It offers a lot of flexibility. At other points during the year, I'll make like a steak just in a pan on the stove. But I like that with this grilled strip recipe, you can use it as like a building block, right? You can leave them as is and serve them with like something simple, some potatoes and maybe some rice, a vegetable. Make the steaks and then slice them and put them into a salad. Reasonable thickness, but just sliced, and I'll add it into a salad. A nice bed of some spring mix, maybe some baby spinach, and like some fixings, vegetables, maybe some sweet peppers, some grape tomatoes, carrots, radishes. And I like blue cheese dressing, so that's what I tend to go with. But, you know, you can use whatever kind of dressing you prefer. But it's something that you can make really quickly. You can make without having to heat up the house. Honestly, I think one of the reasons that for the longest I wouldn't eat steak, especially when out, like at restaurants, is that a lot of people, a lot of places seem to really just season steak with salt and black pepper. And for me, that's just not enough. I'm used to eating meat that's very well seasoned, maybe with or without some aromatics, but some kind of seasoning. Like it's too minerally, too earthy flavored. But I've come to find that I actually like the New York strip. I like that, and I also like the ribeye. And I also find that some cuts of beef can taste a little bit too earthy for me. I remember like as a kid, my mom would sometimes try to mix things up by making roast, like roast beef or like a pot roast, and I just did not like it. To me, some cuts of meat, it can taste a bit like liver.
Thanks for tuning in. To ensure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and check out my Cooking at Home playlist. Go ahead and click that thumbs up button if you like what you saw, and go ahead and share it on social media.